Love when that red light comes on. We're back in the studio,
red lights
in person. On. Red lights on. We got our new camera. We got our new mics. And we have the newest international winner, gold medalist at the FISU World Championships.
I believe that was the name.
That's Miss Julia Scoles on the mic. How are we?
I'm great. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy for this conversation.
That's right. WUGS. That's a big deal.
Oh, yes.
World University Games.
I just had to process
well, is it,
World University Games. You guys didn't call it WUGS?
I'm probably going to refer to it as WUGS.
It was different, though. It wasn't World University Games.
Oh,
it was World University Championships.
Oh, okay. So that was only volleyball, right?
Yeah, beach volleyball was there, but there was also a triathlon competition as
well. So when I went back in the day in, where was I? Russia. No, China?
Russia.
I don't know. I went twice. But that was the games, so it was like a mini Olympics. But then we got invited later to the championships, which is the same thing, but just your sport's there. So you were at that.
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Okay, because I'd heard of university games, but I'd never heard of what you guys just played. But that was a good field. Like, you guys beat a lot of good teams to win that gold medal. And in Brazil, too, which is awesome.
Jose was stoked.
He was. I honestly, going into the final, was like, I don't really care to win this for me. Like, I want to win it for Jose because I know how happy he'll be.
Doesn't that say a lot about Jose, the fact that he has so many wins to his career at every level, and he's just so amped to win, like, for anyone, any team he represents. And then he comes back to us, like, you guys see what we did? You see what my girls did out there? Like, bragging to us. And it's just like, you're the man.
So
you're
funny.
Awesome, Jose.
Yeah.
How, what was the process for that? I never really know, like, how people qualify for it and just how you get there and just, like, what even the competition was.
Yeah, so there was a trials in June, I believe, and the top 2 U.S. teams go. So if you make it to the finals, you go. And Hailey and I lost the trials in the finals, but we knew we would still get to go.
Okay, and that was to Lexi Denenberg?
Yeah, Lexi Denenberg and Maddie May.
Okay.
Yeah. So from there, we didn't know if there would be a qualifier to play into the World Games because we had a guaranteed 1 spot with... for the main draw with just the trials, and then didn't know for the second team. But we ended up bringing 3 teams, and we were all like in the tournament from the beginning. So that's nice. It's
good to have that straight into main draw. Going all the way to Brazil, playing a single limb qualifier. It's intense.
Yeah.
That's the world tour right there. In a nutshell. We got a trash truck coming by right now. You guys are going to hear. We had to open the windows today.
It's steamy in the studio.
But yeah, going, like we were talking about it with, who was our last guest who we were talking about? Just to get used to the world tour, you have to just fly somewhere.
Sophie.
Play 1 match, lose, and just be like, why am I halfway across the world right now?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now you're on the world tour. Welcome.
Yeah. Sophie Bukovic, she was like, fly to Thailand, lose in the qualifier, stay there for 3 days, and then see if you really want to play beach volleyball.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing this at the...
Doing it live.
At the dump, people.
Yeah.
We're just going to let you marinate on that.
Everyone has their jobs.
Yep.
They got to do what they got to do.
This is such classic, like, SANDCAST conditions. Like, everything was perfect for 20 minutes chatting off camera.
Wow, they really got their audio down. and they turned it up in their car, and then it's just straight trash truck.
But this has been, I mean, a heck of a year for you. I mean, you win national championships at USC, 2nd straight, and then you come out and you've made, what, like a handful of finals? Until Manhattan, all of your AVPs, you had at least a 3rd. Win Atlanta, finals in Fort Lauderdale, win a gold medal in Brazil. It's a kick-ass year, Julia.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, I honestly wasn't really expecting very much going into the summer, and I've been pleasantly surprised, and I just love the sport, so I'm just so thankful to be able to play, and winning is obviously a bonus, but all of it has been such a blessing for sure.
Yeah. Has there been, I mean, a moment that sticks out to you as like kind of the big memory from this year?
That's a tough question. I feel like there's been so many moments within the big moments that have been so special and so fun with just like relationships and conversations. And I love playing with Geena, and like the time we share on and off the court has been such a joy. So I can't say that there's like one pivotal moment that I'm like, that's it.
It's weird because sometimes everyone would pick like your biggest win or that specific, everyone would pick a certain moment, probably winning Atlanta, right? But then like when you look back in your mind, it's like some random thing, like, oh, I was in the players' tent and I split a peanut butter jelly with someone or something random like that. Like sometimes you hear that and it's just funny what your mind remembers, like what sticks in your brain, or a conversation with someone or something like that.
And we had Geena on the podcast not too long ago. And it's been really cool to see Geena's career sort of do kind of a 180, because she was like straight into main draw, made a couple finals with Angela Benson, was like at the top. It was like a matter of time, everyone thought, until Geena broke through. And then she had this little dip, didn't even qualify for the Champions Cup, and was just sort of out of the scene. Lo and behold, picks up Julia Scoles, and bam, like you helped resurrect Geena's career. And it wasn't so much, when we were talking to Geena, it's not like physically she's all that different. She said it's just like, it was just finding that right partner and that right chemistry. I'm curious to hear your side of it, just how you and Geena got together and what you saw in Geena that made you think, yeah, this is the right one.
Yeah, I mean, just as a person, since the day I met Geena, I respected her so much, and just the way she approaches training, how consistent she stayed through the pandemic, because I remember being at SC and online remotely and not practicing, going to the beach, and she being at different practices. And just how dedicated she was in the uncertainty of not knowing when the next events would be. And then also, like you mentioned, like the Championship Cup is the only event that they had, and not being in that. And like, I feel like some people would face that and be discouraged and maybe try to switch to like a different career or like something that is more sure. So I've just have respected her work ethic and her approach and her tenacity within that. And then we practiced a few times in the fall, and then she was like, would you want to partner? And when she said that, I was like, yes, because it was all encompassing. Like, she's a great player, she's a great person, she has a good head on her shoulders in terms of work ethic and commitment, and she's on top of everything. Like, she's great at scheduling, and I call her mentor Geena. Like, she knows the beach world, and like she's definitely, I feel like, been such a mentor and leader for our team and for me. So it's been awesome to work with her.
I feel like that's like in the beginning of your career, you almost want to lean more towards getting a veteran to kind of show you the ropes, even if maybe you think a younger talent is more talented or like has a higher upside volleyball wise, just to like get the ropes of being a professional down early in your career. I remember me and Riley McKibben, we played in our first event together, and we were winning. You know, we used to win tournaments back in Hawaii, and we were all confident. And Stein Metzger, we're like, oh, it's Stein Metzger. Like, we're talking with him, all stoked, because we really looked up to him. And then he's like, yeah, you guys should break up and play with someone else. And we're like, fuck this guy. Get out of here.
What does he know?
Breaking up. And then I partnered with Hayden, and it was the best choice ever. So he was right. But it's so valuable. Like we were talking about earlier, the FIVB points and whatnot. Yeah. To learn how that whole system works and what tours do I go to I don't even know. What are they called nowadays? Or the different levels of...
you got the Elite 16, Challenger, and Future.
Challenger, Future, and then we got Tour, Pro, and Gold Series. And then we got the Championships, that's... I'm still wondering, is this the champion? Like, are you the champions for winning?
And anyway, it's confusing. You're in for a real wild ride.
Not trying to... Oh, Norseca is even better. See how confused? But usually you just go with the flow, and you end up where you're going to be, where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. And this is... I mean, what was crazy, I was going through your BVB last night, and you'd only played in one professional main draw before this year. I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. And you played well. You went to 3 in both, but you lost both. And then here you come out and you play like veteran. I didn't want to say it.
It's all right. No shame.
Like what would you say is the difference between the Julia Scoles of last year and the one this year who came out, and I mean, you've established yourselves as one of the most promising blockers we have on the AVP in really fast.
That is kind of you to say. I don't really view myself like that, but I think last year I was still learning the beach game, and as you know, like my history is an indoor, and so I feel like it's been such a difficult transition initially, and then just the experience component I found in beach is so monumental of like, if you know how to play the game well, and you're not necessarily the most athletic, you're going to win over someone who's way more powerful and dynamic than you every time, just because of the experience component and just knowing the game of beach. And so I would say like last year, I don't want to make any excuses. Like, I feel like I was in good shape. Like, we tried our best, but we just lost.
Yeah. Happens.
There's not really a answer, I guess. But this year I feel like I didn't really have many expectations because of that experience from last year of like, oh, like I'm just going to try to make each main draw. Like that was my goal for this year.
Turns out you won a gold series.
Yes.
That's pretty dang cool.
Thank you.
How was the switch in your head like when you, I guess, Florida, you made the finals, where you're like, okay, now I'm, like, did your expectations change a lot in your own head? Like, oh, now I'm a finals player. Like, now this is kind of where I've set the bar for myself. Because you said you just wanted to make the main draw a few tournaments earlier.
Yeah.
And now you're in the finals. It's like, did you move that bar all the way up to I'm a finals player now at that moment?
No, I think my mindset has never been to think about outcomes or think about placement of where I fall. More so just literally show up to each game and try my best, and the outcome is the outcome. And with like you mentioning, oh, like if you got to the finals, do you view yourself as a finals player now? Honestly, like getting to the finals and winning an AVP has been so humbling because it's made me realize that like anyone can win on any given day, and like the people at the top are like so good at volleyball, and like I could have caught them on their off day and vice versa.
Right.
And like, so it's really dependent on the day of like who's going to show up, who's going to play high level volleyball, and am I capable of it? Yes. But is everyone else also capable? Yes.
Right.
So it's like definitely lights a fire to want to continue to push forward and to chase excellence and to master your game. And so hopefully you can continue to, like yourself, win more consecutively and kind of separate yourself from the pack.
Yeah, I think that's a super good mentality to take, because I feel like every time I'm going into these tournaments now, and I've never won 3 out of 4. So being at the very top is new to me. But like every time I tell myself like, okay, now it's really against you. Like now everyone's got a target on your back. Now everyone's going to play better against you. Like now it's more challenging. Now the first round guys are going to come at you even harder. When I take that approach versus like I'm winning now, like things are flowing and like things are going to kind of keep flowing the same way if I just keep doing the same stuff. That's like where the trap is for me. So I think that's really valuable to just be like, no. Now it's harder, or like, just keep humbling yourself. Like now there's other teams that could do the same thing or whatever it might be. Never giving yourself an excuse to just be like, I'm the shit, or I'm good. That's an exaggeration, but like it is easy to fall into that trap, even subconsciously, where you're not telling yourself that, but you actually think it. Especially with me and Trevor, like, we are.
We celebrated last night.
Yeah, exactly.
What are we going to do tonight?
See, now that's a veteran move there.
Legendary.
That's a veteran move where I'm like, okay, I also know that I'm an entertainer. So I have my meetings with the sports psych. I know where my head's got to be, but I'm also like, let's entertain the fans a little bit. And I was just teed up for that one. So I was like, all right, let's hit this one out of the park and move on.
Dude, it was so funny. So my cousins and my uncle, who they were at my wedding and they met you, and they watched Fort Lauderdale, and they were like, I didn't know Tri and Trevor were so cocky. They were so nice and sweet at the wedding. I was like, They are, but like that's them. Like that's their role that they play, and it's a necessary one.
It'd be cool to show the fans like our sports psych meetings and like where we have to keep our heads and be at, and like very in our bubble team. Like, hey, remember, don't let our heads go to the finals. First match, first few points. Like it's very strategic, all of it, but at the same time, just playing with Trevor, a kid that I literally grew up playing with when we were kids, and like. The dialogue's been the same our whole lives. But it wasn't like that when I was with Hayden. So now I'm playing with him again, and it just feels fun. And, like, we're just making noise out there, really. Yeah. It's not the trash talks, whatever. Like, I think when people talk to us, we're so comfortable with it. It's like, okay, you're going to heighten our play. But, yeah, I mean, I feel like I've had to learn it, though. Like, I couldn't talk and play when I was younger. Now I can kind of separate the two.
Yeah. I think it would have been, it's so impressive that not just you're so humble, but everyone out of that USC program is so humble. And I'm not saying it's hard to be humble, but I mean, you guys had so much success. I mean, you look at what your class of Trojans was able to accomplish. You won an NCAA championship. When we talked to Dane, I mean, I think we agreed that it's probably the most talented class in NCAA beach volleyball history. Like, your starting lineup was insane. You win an AVP. Tina wins an AVP with Hailey. Then Tina goes and wins European championships. And all you guys are so humble and down to earth and sweet as can be. And I'm wondering, like, what was that culture at USC like? Because I feel like that's a very rare thing to create.
Yeah, the culture was phenomenal across the board. Like, it was such a cool program to be a part of, and a special year to be a part of it. And you mentioned, like, the trash talking. Like, that was our culture.
Really?
Nice.
Yes. Like, we jokingly... First of all, I feel like there was no jealousy on our team, which is I feel like hard in other programs because it is an individual sport, but also a team sport. So you're vying for those positions. But I think everyone knew their role and what we were there to do. And so in practices, we were able to, like, just joke around, and, like, Hailey and I have such a banter that, like, I'll hit a ball, I'll be like, where were you? And then she'll, like, hit a ball off my block and be like, give me that. And, like, it's just, like, constant smack talk, but in the lighthearted, fun, goofy way. So I feel like it pushed everyone to be their best self, but also realize, like, it's a sport. We do it for fun. Yeah. We can joke around and still play at a high level. And so that was my favorite part. It was just, like, how goofy practices were, but how intense they were too. Yeah. So
that's so good to hear.
And the girls were, like, my best friends too. Like, playing with Delaney was such a joy. Like, I love that girl. And then across the board, like, I love all of my teammates, and so it was just so fun to go to practice and, like, be surrounded by such a good group that was, like, so positive, so encouraging, so motivating, and also worked so hard.
Yeah,
that's so cool. One of the most valuable things I think that me and Trevor have is that when we're at practice, we're competing against, and the dialogue against each other is way more intense than what we're doing to other people in the games. And that's, like, if practice is slow, coach just has to be like, all right, competition, who's going to hit the target 5 times first? And we're just trying to get into each other's heads and make him miss and just, like, heckle.
Yeah.
And, like, oh, wow, nice shot, lettuce hand kind of thing, you know, like dumb stuff like that. And then you got the Brazilians in there.
Yeah, lettuce hand.
No, but, like, that's the most valuable thing because we get bored, right, at practice and stuff. And then you put us against each other and boom. We're right into that competition. I can't lose to Trevor. You can't. You're not going to hear the end of it for, like, a week if you lose to him, you know? And it does happen, but it's just such a good, valuable thing for a coach to be able to just be like, okay, I have these competitive athletes that can just leave it on the court, put them against each other, and just let them fight it out. And there's that game intensity. But you have to have unique athletes for that. And number 2, I think it's really cool to hear that on the women's side. Because I think as you guys get more comfortable at the pro level and understand now we're entertainers, we're trying to not do anything fake or inauthentic, but, like, sharing all this stuff with fans, letting them in on, like, our actual inner feelings is, like, really valuable to the entertainment of the sport. So as I've gotten older, and I'm, like, 10 years in almost now, I'm, like, more comfortable just, like, okay, however I am, I'm just going to be that for the fans and let it come out. Whereas in the beginning, like, focus. Don't say it to stuff out loud. I don't know how this is going to come off. Or like fans to hear that stuff, because we don't hear it that much on the girls' side.
Yeah.
It's cool to hear. So eventually we just let that. Hailey she makes noise. She makes a lot of noise, right?
I would say in the finals against Hailey in Fort Lauderdale, there were a few times where we were like talking back and forth, but like jokingly.
Yeah.
And one of like she kept telling me, and she's like, "Give me that!" And then I remember she made like an insane play, and I was like, "Wow, that was awesome!" So I was back in service eve, and I look across the net. I'm like, that was pretty cool.
So good.
Did it put you at ease a little bit to have such a familiar opponent in the final of Fort Lauderdale? Because I feel like almost the more nerve-wracking match, if I were you, would have been the semifinal where you were playing Kelly Chang and Betsy Flint, who I think is probably the number one ranked team on the AVP, and then you beat them, and then in the finals you're like, oh, my teammates. I've seen them so many times. Did that help just ease the nerves of what would usually come with a final?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what would usually come with the final, because
that
was my first one.
Good point.
But I would say I was just so pumped for Hailey and Tina, and was like, this is like a practice, like plus Geena. But like we were just so pumped to be there, and we're like, let's make the most of this opportunity, and we'll try our best. But ultimately, like, I was so happy for Hailey and Tina, and like it was just a really cool weekend to be a part of, and have Hailey and I like both make our finals like together, which was cool.
Super cool.
Yeah, and that final I think was one of the grittiest performances from an athlete I've seen in a long time.
We learned a lot about you in that one.
And Dane was talking about it because we just had him on last week, and he said that the night before NCAA Championships, he gets a call from the trainers like, "Hey, Julia's been up all night sick," and Dane's like, "That's a bummer, but also awesome, because if we had to pick one athlete to get sick, it's Julia Scoles. Like, she's the toughest person. She'll be fine. You and Delaney end up sealing the championship winning point. Here comes Fort Lauderdale, and you're sick in the technical timeout. And you just come out, and like most people would just like try to rest up for the rest of the set and just like go win the third, and you come out and you're bombing. It was amazing.
I would say that's not quality that's like I'm proud of. I just don't know how to pace. I don't know how to conserve energy and pace myself. It's like very much all or nothing. So I definitely, in retrospect, would have handled that match a lot differently, because I didn't realize how serious heat injuries and like heat exhaustion and heat stroke could be. And at the end of the match, like I had to be carried off and like put in an ice tub, and it was just like very scary after the fact, because the adrenaline kind of keeps you going, and then you get to a point where you're like, oh my gosh, like my body's now in shock, and like I need to recover from this, and I feel terrible, and so I now understand that heat exhaustion is actually serious. And it was funny because we had a conversation at dinner the night before, Tina, Hailey, and I, and I think Hailey had like thrown up in a game and then played like way better, and Tina's like, yeah, there's something about the mindset, like you throw up and you're out there, like don't mess with the person who just threw up. So I was like in the timeout, like I was throwing up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm ready. I'm like, here we go.
I love it.
That's amazing.
It says so much. I was in the tent getting treatment, and I think Karina was like, oh, we got one of the girls is throwing up on the sideline, like a bunch. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that sucks. Like, finals over, waiting to see, like, the player get carried over to the tent. No, they keep going, wow, they're still playing, okay. And they're like, yeah, Julia Scoles is, like, hammering balls now. I'm like, what?
I don't even know what happened. I was, like, delusional.
That is amazing, though. And you want to ideally, you'd be the person who's doing too much, going too hard, and then it feels good when you're at that point. You know that you're willing to go there. And now all you have to do is back off, because backing off feels good. And I feel like I've kind of had to do that for myself a little bit, where coaches are like, hey, don't push it this week. Take it easy. I was like, oh, I was going to go for it. But it's easy to back off. To step up your training is the hard part. So I think you're in a good place. It's really just a matter of efficiency, I think. That was like the big word in my head that I watched film with Mike Dodd, and he's like, bro, you're like not efficient at all. Just like full squat, like deep moving everywhere fast, and like there's no efficiency to your movements. So that's been something I've focused on, and it's definitely helpful. So you're in a good place, though. That's a great place to like just figure out efficiency from like 1,000% to like, okay, I'm gonna go.
Yeah,
whatever.
I think, like Tri said, it's a good starting point when your mistake is overworking.
Yeah, exactly.
You can always dial back. But I'm curious, have you always been wired like that to just work as hard as you do all the time?
I mean, we're all human, and I feel like I don't live up to my expectations a lot of how hard I could be working and how hard I could be pushing. But then, like you said, you have to understand efficiency and balance and understanding that rest is a part of growing and getting better. I honestly would attribute my work ethic to childhood gymnastics.
Really?
Like, that was honestly the most intense regimen I've ever had in terms of athletic training. Like,
Interesting.
It was like 4 hours a day. I was homeschooled. It's like 4 hours a day, 2 hours in the mornings, like every other morning. And it was, looking back, I'm like, how old was I? Like, that was for sure child abuse parts of it. Like, it was very intense. And I think that set the foundation for my muscular development, because I think when you're young, like, you develop muscles at a way more fast than if you're old trying to put on muscle. And so I think that set my muscular development, and then also like set the bar for what it means to work hard. And so every other sport after that, it was like, well, this is nothing compared to gymnastics. Like,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So I think I definitely attribute it to childhood gymnastics.
Gymnastics is also the sport that I think of that if you put a kid in it, that's when they're going to learn the best coordination and balance and all those things, how to control your body and whatnot.
Yeah. My dad had us in gymnastics till we were about 8.
Yeah.
Because like you said, my dad just wanted to have us a foundation of just athletic movements. How long were you in gymnastics for? Because you're tall. Like you're not, you're
I feel like I got out
in the Olympics.
right at the perfect time. I think I did it for around 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I quit at like level 7.
Your toes started dragging on the uneven bars, just like.
No, they had to literally completely, like, as far as the uneven bars could go. That's how they set it as like a child.
That's funny. Well, I remember when I think back on like my work ethic and whatnot, it has nothing to do with volleyball. Like, volleyball has never been hard for me. Yeah, it's always basketball, coaches punishing you, running lines, and then soccer, where you had like. Whatever, we had like regional training where he's like, you can go home when you throw up, that kind of thing. Yeah. And but ever since then, it's like, well, volleyball is just so easy. Like, I can work really hard and it's still not as hard as that kind of stuff where you just run till you throw up. Yeah. Or just, make the finals of Fort Lauderdale and get to the tech. Right, exactly, yeah, exactly. But what I want to know, like, what did the week after Fort Lauderdale and Atlanta look like? Because, you were borderline heat exhaustion, get in the ice tub, and then you probably didn't train a whole heck of a lot before Atlanta, and then you come out and win the dang thing. Yeah, the week leading up to Atlanta, I would say, looked more so like recovery from the weekend. And I remember talking with Karina, one of the athletic trainers, and she explained to me heat exhaustion and was like, you're basically cooking your insides and your body needs to reset. It's like a shock to the system. And so I went and got like IVs. I got a lot of electrolytes. I just rested. I feel like I slept a lot more. And then I think Wednesday or Thursday was our first practice. And I think from Fort Lauderdale, Geena and I were like, all right, we made it to the finals. Like, this is our weekend. Like, we can do this. And I think we just went in with not like expectations, but also with more confidence and like, this is not out of reach. And so I think that balance of confidence as well as not expecting to win was helpful in terms of having success in the tournament. Mm-hmm. Nice. Did it feel different making the Atlanta final?
I'm trying to remember the feelings. I remember Sunday because obviously there was a lot of adverse weather conditions,
Yeah.
and so everything kind of changed in the format. And we always joke, we're like, we're first set gals. So whenever they changed the format to 1 to 28, I was like, yes, this is made for us. Yeah, and especially also for energy conservation because we had way more games Sunday than we would have. And I think going into each match, I was like, oh, this is a really good team because I feel like we played a lot of the top teams on our side of the bracket. And so I was like, oh, like, I'm just happy to be here. Like, I'm excited to play them. And then I was like, oh my gosh, we won. And then the next one, I'm like, oh, well, at least we made it this far. Like, I'm just excited to play them. This is a really good team. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we won again. So I feel like each time I was like, oh my gosh, like, didn't really anticipate the final, just like you said, taking each match for what it is. And we just continued to go. And I was like, until the last point of the finals, I'm like, did we really just do that? I can't believe that. So it was really cool.
It sounds really similar to hearing Taryn and Kristen talk about Atlanta the year before, because they had come all the way from the quali to win it. And it was the same thing. They're just like, oh, we're just going to play this match. Like, oh, wow. Oh, I guess we're good. I guess we're that good. And then, oh, wow, we beat this team. And everyone was just surprising themselves, which is great.
And the women's field in general, it's been so fun to watch because it's just been, like you said earlier, anyone can beat anyone. Yeah. And that has never been truer than this year. And it's funny because I looked at it and I'm like, it's amazing what happens when April doesn't play.
I know. I'm like, thank you, April and Alex.
I know. I'm like, thank you for semi-retiring Phil.
Yeah, for a moment.
That's what. And Dane spoke to. He's like, when April's out, and like when Phil's sort of kind of not messing around this year, but messing around a little bit, and Jake's gone, and he's like, there's no guard anymore. There's no one team that you look at and like, to win this tournament, I have to get through that team. And it's been really fun for, at least for me, as a fan of just watching beach volleyball on the women's side. It's been awesome. I'm curious what it's like been as a player where you play that first round, any team you play could end up winning.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's what's made each weekend so exciting, and just thinking about possibilities of like anyone could win. And so that's what I said is like so humbling, is like so many teams are good, and it's just like about bringing your A game after A game after A game and capitalizing on if someone brings you their B game.
And I'm curious because like the college season, it's so long, and it's not long, but it is compact. I mean, you're just competing. You're training a ton. You haven't had a break since like February.
Well, after NC's, I tweaked my knee and had like...
That's right.
Yeah, so I was rehabbing for like the month of May. And so that was honestly a nice built-in break. And because I was I went to my friend's wedding as well, and Geena was the maid of honor for the AVP Austin or...
New Orleans?
New Orleans?
New Orleans?
Austin was the first one.
Okay, I think it was New Orleans actually. Yeah, AVP New Orleans.
San Antonio. That was when you tweaked your knee, right? And that was the qualifier for New Orleans.
Okay, yes. So we both had like weddings that she was going to attend anyway. So I'm like, this is a perfect time to have an injury. Makes me appreciate my sport more. I have built-in downtime.
Yeah.
Can focus more in the weight room. But yeah, definitely put things in perspective. And then thankfully it wasn't like a lagging injury. I still have knee issues for sure. But... They're playable. Yeah.
Right.
Get the corn out.
Gabby's muffins are out.
Yeah.
That was a test.
Yeah.
To see if he'd walk by him.
But this whole year you've played how many tournaments now? And you're starting to do the international stuff. Was the Brazil tournament the first time you've gone overseas to play?
Yes.
How was it? Just like
oh my
experience?
Gosh. It was an experience.
Yeah.
Yes. I have so many stories from this trip that could probably fill another podcast. But yeah, just the process of getting there. There was some like logistical things with paperwork. And so Hailey and I got stuck in the Fort Lauderdale airport. And so we left on Thursday night and didn't get there until Saturday at like 4:00. So I'm like, that was quite the travel day. And then there was like a 24-hour flu that pretty much knocked out 80% of the athletes. And people were like aggressively throwing up.
Oh.
And Hailey got that on Tuesday.
Oh.
Thankfully, I was one of the 3 or 4 people from the American team that didn't get sick.
Oh.
But like, yeah, so girls were like showing up to matches. Like when we played Canada, Liam Monkhouse actually had the sickness and was throwing up all night, and she was like not okay in our game. And so
man.
it was very unfortunate because when you travel all that way, like, you want to bring your best game, and you also want your opponent to bring their best game, and you don't want sickness or something to inhibit your play, and you don't want to win when someone is sick, and you're like... I mean,
just being honest.
I mean, I do want to win, obviously, but it's like, oh, like, I wish we could have a fair battle. So that component, and then... It was just interesting adjusting to like the different kinds of foods, and I like Google translated so many conversations,
Not
like
a lot
in
of
Portuguese.
English spoken in Brazil.
Oh, what'd you say?
There's not a lot of English spoken in Brazil.
No, but I worked my Portuguese as good as I could, and that was probably the most fun part, was like trying to communicate with the locals, and I would translate pretty lengthy sentences. Like I remember one of my teammates brought me groceries, and we were in the dining hall, and instead of going up to my room because we were going to get acai, I just wanted to give it to the front desk people. So I Google translated. I was like, "Hello, I was wondering if you could take this bag and hold it behind your counter while I go get acai. I will be back in 15 minutes." And they were standing there looking at me, and they're like, trying not to bust out laughing. And they say, yes. And
Yes.
they like grab it.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah, and they were like laughing. And so I got a kick out of them getting a kick out of me trying to speak Portuguese. So it just like fueled the fire. So I just kept talking so much. And then even in our games, like Hailey would show me the blocking calls. In Portuguese, sim is yes. And I didn't even like realize it, but she would show me. I'd be like, sim. And then and she like didn't say anything about it. And then later in the evening at film, she was like, "What are you doing responding to me in Portuguese in the game?" She's like, "I'm trying to play," and you're like, sim. Yeah, so...
You get to like a good say like obrigado.
Yeah, no, yeah. Every like ball person, I'm like obrigada.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's
Or like
fun.
the refs are like, "Come on, it's time to get out," and I'm like, "Desculpe, man."
That's hilarious.
That was fun.
But it's so different to see, because just playing, the conditions are always so different when you play internationally. I mean, the jet lag, I think, is one of the most underrated factors that most people can't empathize with. It's like, why are they playing like sort of sluggish? It's like, you have no idea what a 9-hour time difference does to your body. It's different.
Yeah, or a multiple week trip, or the food, or all those things.
Flu.
Flu will do it. Oh, it's so brutal. Had you traveled at all outside of the U.S., even not for volleyball? Just period?
Growing up, I went to Costa Rica with my family, and we went to Mexico a few times, Canada a handful of times, because my mom's side of the family is from upstate New York. And then I went to school for 2 years in Hawaii, and I know that's part of the U.S.,
right,
but
pretty much.
Really
It's pretty
feel
much
like you're in an international place for
I
sure.
say that Hawaii is my favorite country.
Yeah, for sure.
And people in Hawaii don't. It's mainland and Hawaii.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
definitely feel like they're a different country.
Yeah, after learning in Hawaiian history class, I was like, I kind of feel guilty for being here right now.
Damn. Us white people really came in here hot and just took over, huh?
Yeah.
That's why I was yelled at all the time as a kid. So you hadn't left the North America,
Yeah.
right? So South America,
Yeah.
and you still got to do the whole. That's cool. I mean, because you're in for it now, the world tour.
We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, so you and Zana are signed up for the Maldives and Dubai. Mm-hmm. Nice.
I'll be
Maldives looks wild. Just looking at the group chats, it's like, because there's only one hotel on the host island, and so a lot of people have to stay on a different island in the Maldives and get a boat to the tournament.
Wow.
That's like
that sounds amazing.
That's the taxi system.
I'm not going to want to play volleyball, but I really want to be there.
I know. I'm trying to look up snorkels to buy right now.
Snorkels
so
to
I can
buy.
bring it with me.
It might be cheaper there, actually.
Really? Because I feel
a
like
lot of those places are pretty cheap.
Okay.
Like Indonesia's super cheap.
The Maldives is, I think it's such a tourist destination.
They're gonna want a snorkel, so we'll charge them like $400 for a snorkel because we're the only people who are distributing snorkels.
That's
if
true.
I come with my snorkel, I'm ready to go.
Come prepped.
Don't get it at the resort. Go to like a local store and it'll be like
Yeah.
a fourth of the price. But yeah, you can bring a snorkel. Let's be honest.
Because that's been one of the toughest parts for the players playing in that. They're like, there's no way any of us are making money, especially the people in the qualifier who have to pay for the hotels because the hotels are hugely expensive. And then the ferry is another expense in and of itself. And then the airfare to the Maldives. And I haven't looked it up, but I'm sure it wasn't a quick flight to Florida.
Yeah, no. It's going to be like 30 hours, I think.
Shoo.
Yeah, that's a nuts one.
But beautiful. Undeniably. A beautiful place to start your international career.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, did you get FIVB points from Brazil?
I think we got 200 each.
That's a start. That's not bad.
I don't really know what that means, but we do have 200
That's
points.
the equivalent of winning a futures.
Okay,
Oh, really?
Cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so that's honestly a pretty great start, especially since I would assume that it was funded with USA.
Yes.
So it's really nice to get free points.
Yeah.
Because those are really valuable. When you start calculating the point per dollar ratio, you start getting pretty depressed.
Yeah, and I think Jose was saying those are additional points, so they're like are frozen, and so they add on to whatever finishes are like counted for.
So it won't get washed out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's acting like that's how Norseca works.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Is you can play as many Norsecas as you want. They're sort of like the AVP next to the international system. Is basically what you just did. Yeah. But how did you and Zana get together?
She
That's
said,
a good pickup.
Yeah, she was like, "There's a Maldives tournament. Do you want to do it?" I was like, "Sure."
Easy.
Simple as
Yeah,
that.
because honestly, like I am still in my grad program. It doesn't end until next May. And my mindset going into this year was to get my feet wet domestically. And I thought like the transition from being a student athlete to being a student athlete would be easier with the structure of school still in place. So I started another program in January. And I didn't want to like jump into beach volleyball and just put all my eggs in one basket and like hope that this works out. I'd rather have a gradual transition that allows me some mobility, and also allows me to further my professional side of things, not a career, but school.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't really thinking like FIVB would be on my radar. And so obviously the trials was a cool opportunity, but I was not, I guess, looking to just full force go FIVB. But then she asked me, and I'm like, why not? Let's try.
You started playing too good. That was the problem. No. It's good, too, to get a little, obviously, some points under your belt, but also just some international play because you play well, and all of a sudden you're sitting within reach of being in this Olympic race. Like when I started with Hayden in 20... what was it 13? 13, I think. Was it 14?
Somewhere in
maybe
that
14. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking like I'm gonna go on the world tour and be one of the Olympic teams against Dahlhauser and Gibb. But then we went and did well in like 3 events in a row, and Hayden's like, well, we're in the Olympic race. Should we go for it? I'm like, well, I guess, yeah. Let's go for it.
Yeah,
like,
let's do it.
we really had no plan at all. So it's good to at least get started and see what happens.
I mean, that's the ultimate dream. And so I think this year makes me realize that it's not out of reach completely, because I feel like growing up when I'm like, oh, I want to be in the Olympic, it's like, oh, so does every other kid. Like,
yeah, right.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to know that like it could be possible is like super encouraging. And yeah.
It's a very different game too. I think that's what you'll learn as well. I think your game's going to translate easily, but like everyone that plays World Tour AVP is like, there's World Tour volleyball and then there's AVP volleyball. Mm-hmm. And there's been a few people over the years where it just doesn't translate. They just can't go overseas and get the finishes. Mm-hmm. but it is just a little different. So it's good to just get those reps in and understand what it feels like. Different ball, obviously, but different styles of play, too, because all these countries, they're not like the U.S., we all see each other. So if someone starts playing a different style, we can kind of adapt and, like, you know, we all kind of are going to play a similar style as a whole. But then you have, like, other countries where they're just doing stuff. We have no idea what they're doing all off season, and then you just show up and they're doing it. Like Australia's running these crazy sets to the pins. Swedish kids are just jumping on literally every touch, like basically serve-receive jumping.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's next.
They're crazy, man.
The Dutch are like, wow, okay, everyone's going to be 7 feet tall on the court. Like, it's very different and unique. So, yeah, you just got to get out there and feel it out.
I'm excited for you. And I think that your game especially, because I think the World Tour, it's just the biggest difference, I think, from AVP to World Tour is that it's more physical. Like, people just beat the living shit out of the ball on the World Tour, which is why I think that your game fits real well.
Perfect.
Because you have the biggest arm.
Yeah, that's always my game plan is see ball, hit ball, hope for the best.
It's worked out pretty well.
I need to become more of a finesse style a little. That's my goal right now, is to become a well-rounded player.
It's always easier to take something off than to learn how to hit hard.
Yeah.
I think. That's what me this year, in the beginning of the year, was just hit the crap out of the ball. And then finally, as AVPs rolled around, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I have an off-speed game that's going to really help in this whole, like, inefficient thing that I got going here.
Yeah. But I think it's also really useful for you that all your finishes are going to be backloaded. So you'll have time. They'll be at the end of the year. So you'll have time to finish your grad program, and you won't have a crazy hurry to get back on the World Tour, because it's hard to go international, domestic. It's cool that you're just like, you did your domestic section, and now you're just international with Zana. It's cool at the end of the year because this is the time of year where a lot of teams will start sitting out to rest for the next year, so they're a little bit lighter, but the points don't change. So you can take advantage of sort of, you said you always want to bring your A game, take advantage of a B game. You always want to bring your A game and take advantage of a B tournament.
Yeah.
And a lot of the fall tournaments are sort of B tournaments because a lot of teams will start prepping for the Olympic race. So I think that you're doing, like, the perfect thing right now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll see.
Didn't plan it, but that's good to know that it worked out.
Sometimes things just happen for a reason. Like, you didn't plan on your knee getting hurt, and it ended up working out pretty well. You just had the best season of your career. Geena had the best season of her career. And here you are.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Well done.
Yeah. But you said the Olympics are kind of the ultimate goal. Are you, like, is goal setting a big part of your process?
That's a good question. I think not so much as I've gotten older. I think when I was younger, I was really intense, really competitive, had a goal, had an outline of, like, how to achieve that goal. And as I've gotten older, I feel like I bring that level of intensity and work ethic that I've had, but I approach it in a way more lighthearted, I love this game kind of way, and knowing that I can't control the outcome, but obviously wanting to maximize my potential and be my best self. And I think my goal has changed from outcomes and accolades to I just want to be my best self. And whatever that means is, like, that's fine outcome. Like, yes, I say my goal is the Olympics, but honestly, like, if I can't get there at my best self, like, I'm perfectly content with being wherever I'm at, knowing that I reached my potential.
Yeah.
And if that means the Olympics, cool. That would be awesome. But if it doesn't, I'm not going to be crushed because of it.
Yeah. I love it. You're a well-rounded human being.
Yeah. For some reason, when I hear that, I'm like, oh, that's going to increase her chances of actually pulling it off.
Yeah.
Don't jinx it.
Versus,
Don't jinx it.
I got wood right here. We'll not. But, like, versus other people where you just hear, like, I'm going to do this and it's going to happen. And I'm like, maybe not. You know?
Maybe not.
I don't know. I think it's backwards. Or there's just too many traps in the whole, like, I'm going for that thing and it's going to happen. Just, like, moment to moment, be your best and see where you end up.
Yeah.
I like that.
Boom. What are you studying right now anyway?
I'm in a communication management program.
Okay.
Yes.
Is this your second master's?
Yes.
How many degrees do you have?
Jeez.
Well, en route to a third, I guess. But
because you have I mean, did you get your bachelor's at Hawaii?
Yeah, finish undergrad at Hawaii, and then an entrepreneurship and innovation program at SC, which was awesome. Like, I feel like I learned a lot. I feel like the workload was very manageable. So in my mind, I was like, oh, what's another master's? You know? And so I was like, I'll just start one and I'll make the transition easier because I won't really have to be dedicating that much time to it. But this master's program is so intense in terms of workload. And I've just been like, I'm burnt out from my spring classes. I've already taken summer classes and I started fall like 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, I can't do this.
Oh my God.
Like over the summer, I've literally written more than 55 pages.
Jeez.
I know, between my two
classes. That's not like
classes.
creative writing, I'm sure.
No, it's like research papers.
Yeah, Travis is like, I wrote that last week.
No, I know. You crank out.
What I write is I write fun things. I'm totally sexual.
I feel like you're gifted, and you can just crank out work. Where I'm like, what do I write?
I don't think I wrote 55 pages in my whole school career from first grade all the way. No way.
I've never applied myself more than in this program.
I also got in and out of SC 4 years, scraped by C average. Just like, oh my God, I made it.
Yeah, C's get degrees.
That's it.
Yeah.
D's get degrees too. You just got to counter them with a B.
I love Julia.
You just got to counter them with a B. Okay.
That's what I learned because I needed to be at the 2.0. I was like, oh crap, D.
D's as well. But
if I get a B here, then that's a C average.
Yeah.
And how many times have you been asked your GPA in your life?
Never.
0.
In high school, I remember like, it was a thing, and then after that, it's like school in general. I'm not a good person to talk about school. Yeah. I'm like, whew, I got out of there, never going back.
Man, we had a guest speaker in one of my journalism classes, and he was talking about how he would always skip his classes to go do newspaper assignments. And our teacher was like, you can't be telling these guys this. He's like, I'm telling the truth. He's like, you'll never be asked for your GPA is. Get a C. Do the minimum. Right. The teacher was like, all right, you're done.
I think it's true, though. A lot of people that were so good at school when I was in school and I was just struggling because my brain just didn't work like that, are struggling a lot more in the real world than I am, where I feel free and just able to, like, there's no, like, cheating in the real world, right? You either got it done or you didn't.
Yeah.
You're either the person for the job or you're not. Whereas, like, in school, it's like, well, if you looked at that person's paper, then you cheated. Well, no, I got the answer onto my paper. So I don't mean to be like, I don't believe in cheating and all that, but I may have had to
degrees too.
If the answers
calls, I listen to the SANDCAST. We're revoking your degree.
In the real world, wouldn't I be foolish though? Like if the answer is right there, to not look up and just, dude, the goal is to get the answers on this piece of paper. Okay, so how am I going to get them? I don't know them, but they're right there. So I'm going to do the assignment and get the job done.
You learn how to be resourceful.
Yeah, resourceful.
And I did my best. That's how I justified it. I'm like, I'm going to do as good as I can and then figure out a way to get the grade that I need. Or else I just fail and then it was a waste of time. I don't know. That's probably bad, but...
For any high schoolers listening,
also, if
your
I
GPA matters.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
You got to get into college, and then after that, C's to get to degrees.
Yeah, and also I think if I went back to school nowadays, I'd be, like, way more invested in, like, listening and enjoying the learning part of it.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't be studying urban planning either, whatever.
Yeah, that was dumb.
He got his major in
I didn't know what
planning.
I was doing.
What does that mean?
No one knows.
I don't know.
Are
It's
you
like
a good
city
planner?
planning. No. No, I really regret it. But it was like real estate. All my buddies from SoCal were like going into real estate eventually. So it's like the real estate track. But then the whole degree was like policy, planning, and development. So policy is rule making, basically. Yeah. City planning, and then development. And just like all things that just don't match with my brain. And then in the real estate track. So there's like 2 real estate classes. One of them was finance. So like my brain exploded for that. And I was like, when do I learn how to just buy houses and like own them? Like that's what I thought real estate was. Never learned it.
Or go to cool properties and just be like, you want to buy this and then get a massive commission.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I like houses. I want to buy a house. I'll do a real estate track.
Here you are.
I did it.
Bought this house. Fixed it up real nice.
Didn't use any of the skills that I learned in the degree.
That's why I'm
Anyway.
a big proponent of the gap year. Because, I mean, how long did it take you to figure out what you actually wanted to study in college? Or maybe you knew, like,
This
kind
is
of
a
right
loaded
away.
question. I mean, I think communications I was always drawn to
Mm-hmm.
just because I feel like I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy how messages are relayed, how they're received, and how communication is the bedrock for all things. Like, you can be the most intelligent person in the world, but if you can't articulate your knowledge to someone, it's void.
Yeah.
So I think that part drew me, as well as how broad it is in terms of what you can do with it. And so there's so many different routes. And I don't have one passion of like, oh, I want to be a real estate agent. Like, I don't know what I want to do outside of pursuing beach volleyball. And I think that this allows me to have some mobility and different opportunities that are related and in the field, and that I could get more granular and specialized later.
Yeah. You'll have options. Double masters. That'll get you a good entry-level job somewhere.
Yes.
Hopefully you don't need one, though. Hopefully you and Zana just kick ass in the Maldives and Dubai. Dubai will be sweet. That'll be a fun one to go to.
I heard they have an indoor skiing place.
I have heard that.
What?
Hopefully you don't have
Saudi
time to
Arabia.
go see that. That's usually a good sign on the world tour. You're
Okay.
like, oh, there's all these cool things. But if you're winning, you never get to see any of it. If you lose, then you're doing all the sightseeing. So the goal is to not be able to see any
My
of the cool
goal
stuff.
is to win and sightsee as well. So maybe we split up our practice schedule to where we're...
Well, Dubai will be
Good
your
luck.
last one, though, so you could spend a couple extra days there and sightsee after. And it's back-to-back, so
Yeah,
you
there
can
you
take
go.
a day between tournaments or something.
Yeah, one day fit it all in.
Yeah.
See all the sights, indoor ski.
And
You're
Zana is
skiing?
indoor skiing.
Skiing's the best call during
Yeah,
the
I
tournament,
know.
but probably not the best snow either, I'm guessing, in the mall.
Yeah, in the mall. And Zana's
the
a great
desert.
person to travel with because she always likes making a little trip out of it, like making sure
Yeah.
that you do get some life value outside of beach volleyball.
Yeah.
So she'll be, I mean, you picked up a lot of good mentors. You had Dane Blanton as your coach. Geena showed you the ropes, mentor Geena.
Yeah, mentor
now,
Geena.
Now you'll have mentor Z.
Yeah.
So you picked a good bunch.
Yeah, I'm excited.
What have you learned about yourself this year? I feel like a rookie year on the pro tour, I mean, you've probably had quite the deluge of lessons that you've picked up along the way.
I have not reflected to
Yeah,
think
like you're
this
still in the
through,
middle of it, yeah.
but I will try to give you an answer. I would say that what I've learned about myself is that I do enjoy a balanced life, and I definitely identify as a volleyball player, but that's not where my identity is rooted. And I know, faith is super important to me, and so just having trust in God in all of the highs and lows, because yes, there were wins, but there are also some terrible losses where I really question, like, what am I doing? Am I even good at the sport? And so I think just having that constant has allowed me to not ride the highs too high and ride the lows too low, but just have like a steady outlook. And I guess what I've learned about myself is that this is actually a possibility. Like, I could go far in this sport, and I think it's up to me putting in the work and kind of having a future projection of, yes, it may not look like wins all the time, and I may have down tournaments, but over like 5 years, where will my game be then versus now? Because I honestly feel so young and new to the game still. In so many ways, I want to refine and grow my game and learn more about the sport and, like, honestly just master my skill set within the sport. And so that's what I'm super excited about. And just knowing that where I'm at now, like, I can be a lot better because I know that I have so much growth to do still.
Do you feel like you've changed physically at all? Just like strength or jump or velocity of the ball or anything like that?
I honestly don't think so. I think that I try to stay consistently in like the weight room and training and whatnot. But I think SC did a good job of preparing us for the next level. And yeah.
Yeah, the reason I ask, because when I was, 23, I came out. I think every year I gained like 3 to 5 pounds, maybe 3 pounds over like where my playing weight was, up to like 20 pounds. Like I think I started at like 180. And so like physically, and I see where I'm jumping, how high my head's getting over the net, all that changed like every year a lot. Velocity on the ball, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm wondering.
Yeah. I would say because of COVID and having an extra year in college, as well as having a medical hardship from indoor, like I'm pretty old getting out of college.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like I remember someone told me that like something was written on Volley Talk where they're like, they're so old, they need to like move on and get a life, blah, blah, blah. Like, why are they still in college? I'm like, hey, got to keep the 18-year-olds humble, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly.
No, but I also am like, free education, structured practices, like
Totally. SC, like the most professional athletic program in the country, arguably.
So I was like, I'm going to ride this wave as long as I can until they kick me out. And here I am. And eligibility is up, still in the grad program. So I think that because I've had like 6.5, 7 years of college and just steady strength and conditioning development. And I think my coach, shout out Eric Hernandez at Carolina, my first strength coach, was foundational in terms of technical form and just the approach and the mindset around the weight room. And that has set the foundation for like everything that I've done since then.
Interesting. I was like dying to leave college at 4 years.
Yeah.
Like just graduate so I can not have to do 5, but I'm different.
I was ready. I was also not on a scholarship though, so I was also like,
I was also
need
playing
to make money.
Indoor, where I was like, I want to play beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
What about? Do you think you've gained a better idea of what kind of partner maybe best suits you? Because you played with a lot of partners through college, a few different partners now at the pro level, another one in Zana coming up. Do you feel like you're at the point where you're like, okay, person that, either is better at communication and kind of takes the lead and in terms of strategy and stuff, I need that, and then I need them to be maybe quicker on defense because I'm a bigger block, or I need them to set well, or anything specific where you're like, that's the kind of partner I need and that plays to my strengths best?
That's a good question. I think that I've had the privilege of playing with a lot of good people, and playing with different people I think develops your overall game because maybe their strength helps you realize a strength of yours that you didn't know, or like maybe their deficiency causes you to have to capitalize on a weakness that you had to grow your game. And same with communication styles. Every person, you're communicating differently. And so I think playing with a lot of different people, I've really appreciated what I've learned from each one of them. I would say more so like what I think I need in a partnership is someone who allows me to play freely and like very efficient stream of communication of like, I am just after us becoming our best self, and it's never something personal. It's like, how can we continue to push the edge? And I want someone who's going to like hold me accountable and vice versa, and kind of have that like foot on the gas / like intense mindset that you can just continue to push. And it's not like a me against you thing, but let's see how we can literally maximize our potential and be the best team that we can be.
Love it.
Well, I'm glad you've kept your foot on the gas this season. It's been a kick-ass season. And so this will come out next Wednesday, which will be after the VolleyballMag Awards come out. So you are the VolleyballMag Rookie of the Year.
That is so
on the
kind.
AVP. So congratulations to you.
We're announcing stuff here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So congrats on a great season. It's been great having you on, great chatting.
Yeah,
and
this has
I'm
been
looking
awesome.
forward to watching you in Phoenix and overseas. I'm looking forward to watching your overseas, your FIVB career get off the ground.
Thank you.
Congrats. Roy. Got the Roy.
The Roy. The Wug and the Roy.
Wug and the Roy.
You're learning all the acronyms.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Shoots. Thank you.
Yeah, you know.
So many guests have been not shooting with us. That was very refreshing.